Good evening, this is Jack from Charting Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the evening of Sunday, the 20th of April. A disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you take some of what I'm doing and learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. I'm not here to issue trading signals. Right. Okay, let's have a look at the hourly charts on the index futures first. Possible bull flag forming here, but it looks more like either a triangle or we see a bit lower here, lower low mainly, and that could be a bull flag. It's quite a large one. I would like to see a higher high within this move, and I think there's a pretty good chance we'll see it. We've had 2 weeks which have been a rally from the lows. 2 weeks have closed within that, but we haven't actually had 2 full calendar weeks. But that, in terms of the head and shoulder patterns that I was showing a couple of weeks ago, is possibly enough. I would like to see a bit more, and I think there's a pretty good chance we will see a bit more. Not seeing any big tariff announcements today that might depress the market, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, would I like to see this go a bit lower? Yes, I was talking about this on Friday. I would love to see this head down and become a proper bull flag with a lower low below this low here. We will see whether we get that. NQ looks pretty much the same. Exactly. This could be a triangle forming. Equally, we could go down and make it a flag, but looks almost identical. RTY. RTY, we've got pretty similar again. Could be a triangle, could go a little lower. I mean, would these flags be a little large? But I'm thinking in terms of A, B, C. So that would work. YM, again, looks almost identical. DAX. We're starting off the week below the weekly pivots on all of these, I think. ES very slightly below, NQ very slightly below, RTY no, slightly above, and YM a bit below. In terms of DAX and the Euro, sorry, I've been moving around all my futures charts this weekend. I was using the extra day to do a few modifications. But DAX, we're almost back up at this high. I'd like to see a little more downside there too, and ESTX, and I'm hoping we will get that tomorrow. And that could work pretty well. So we shall see. I'm not hoping really to get some decent trend lines. I'm hoping for a decent flag to form. Ideally going a little lower first and then going higher. And possibly we could get some very decent looking bear flags then. Okay, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. All right, and on ES, no real divergence here. Obviously, we've got a possible target up at the daily middle band at 54.92, although that is now down below this high here. So if we were to do what I'm talking about here, we would be seeing a break above and very possibly a break above the declining resistance from the high. Pretty much the same on SPX. Nothing in terms of divergence on the hourly chart. And on the 15-minute chart, I drew in what I would ideally like to see. And this is basically the down move and then the up move that could give us a really nice bear flag if that is in fact what's going to happen. Looking at the Qs, pretty much the same. Decent resistance at the daily middle band, which has held for 3 days so far. I'd be looking for that to break a bit. If we were to see these flags form, we'll see. No divergence on the hourly chart there too. On the 15-minute here, again, I've drawn in a slightly lower low here, and then higher. Looking at Dia. Dia, again, daily middle band is the obvious resistance, and I'd be looking on this scenario for a break above. Again, I'd be looking a little lower. And I've drawn in the ideal flag here as well. All right, let's have a look at IWM. IWM, I didn't draw in a possible sell up here. As it is, we've already got a decent looking potential support trend line here, so I'd be looking for some higher, but I didn't have an obvious path for that to follow to set that up. It's in terms of the hourly chart, no divergence again. In terms of the daily middle band, again, not too far above, with the declining resistance not too far above that. DAX, we've seen a move, almost got back to the daily middle band. I'd like to see a little more downside, and then higher on that too. And Nikkei, the same. Again, daily middle band is the potential failure rate, which only a couple of these have reached, and they could all fail at. So I'll be watching that closely as and when we get there. All right, let's have a look at. Sorry, I've reorganized all my futures charts this weekend. And also, I added just to mention, I added a couple. I've added palladium and platinum just because the stock charts to stop covering them, so I've added the 60-minute futures charts, and I'm deepening what I'm looking at on there. And also I updated a few, I rolled over a few here. CLNNG I've rolled into June, and I rolled wheat, corn, soy, and lumber into July. Okay, DAX. We're staying pretty close to the lows. This looks like a little bear flag or triangle, setting up a retest the low. I am wondering if we might see a larger rally from here. Obviously, news will have kind of, a big impact on this. We will see. All right, ZB. ZB, we're seeing a rally here. Again, I'm looking for ideally a little more to the upside before likely continuing down. So I'm not seeing any particularly happy endings in terms of bonds here in the near future. Let's have a look at that on the bigger picture chart. And, okay, US dollar. Now, one reason I'm thinking that we might see a rally here is because we've actually got a pretty nice looking falling channel here. It's nice. It really is nice. And I'm wondering if we might head back and hit the channel resistance. Now, we've got this set up on the futures, and we've got this on the index here too, which is basically the continual futures. I'm liking this. Don't know if we're going to see it. We don't have any positive divergence here, but if we were to see a full retest of this low, we would get some possible buy signals brewing. I'm not thinking that this would be a big reversal on the dollar. I think this is likely to be heading down, but we could see a decent counter-trend rally here. Looking at the bigger picture charts, we have got a possible RSI 5 buy signal brewing here. What we don't have at the moment is an RSI 14. Obviously, in terms of this pattern I showed here, this was the rally pattern from this low here in July 23. And we saw a nice move up, lovely megaphone, and it broke down. I was talking about it then breaking down into a retest of this low here, and it did that and got slightly lower than that, and that's where we've been paused. On the bigger picture, I think this may be a bull flag forming on the bigger picture, although bull flags, I have noted, of course, often break down 30% of the time. But the main target I'm looking at is below that, and that is this rising support trend line, which is in the 96 area. We'll see whether we get there. That would be, if we were to see a big reversal back up, that's the place where we would likely see it. All right, looking at the euro. Euro, we're seeing a break up here. This could be, again, the mirror image flag forming, bear flag forming. Doesn't need to be necessarily. This could be just head up, let's say, into this possible IHS neckline in the 1.255 area. And we will see how that goes. I think Trump's policies are likely to be bad for the dollar and likely bad for bonds. In terms of the weekly chart, no current divergence. Same chart really. In terms of the daily chart, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, which hasn't quite failed. No current negative divergence apart from that. And obviously this whole thing here, which I'm seeing as a bull flag, has broken up into the new high, and we are seeing whether we might see a big reversal here. I think it is unlikely, but it is possible. Looking at GBP USD. I've been extending my charts quite a bit. So I've extended the currency charts quite a bit. I've extended the ones on the commodities, on the metals. I'm going to be looking at a lot of these in more detail. I'm not planning to take much longer doing it, doing these reviews, but it should give me more of a longer term view on a lot of these instruments, which I was doing in a more shallow fashion before, and that covers all of the currencies. All right, on the weekly chart on GBP, this is a falling wedge. This is the breakup from falling wedge. This is a potential level bottom, or part formed IHS, and the next obvious big target on the upside would be this possible IHS neckline or double bottom resistance in the 1.4247 area. No, 1.4376 rather. We will see how that goes. On the daily chart, we've got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed. Not sure how seriously I'm taking that. In the short term, this looks like a bull flag that's broken up with a target at the retest of this high here at 1.3434. Looking at USD JPY, on the monthly chart, we've still got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, but USD JPY, obviously, this correlates directly with the dollar, and this is a setup which is suggesting that we're about to see potentially a pretty big reduction in where the yen is. So I'm thinking this matches what I'm really expecting to see on the US dollar. Next big target here would be in about the 115 area. This support trend line, break through that, and this whole thing was likely a bear flag, setting up a retest of this low here at 75.54. That is slightly over half of the current level, so that would be a big move. All right, looking at the weekly chart, no current divergence. Looking at the daily chart, possible RSI 5 buy signal brewing. Not really expecting anything to deliver, but I am watching, as I said, for a possible rally on the dollar here. So maybe. USD CAD, this looks like a double top, which has already formed to basically take this down to the retest this low here under parity. Again, this would be the dollar falling heavily against the Canadian dollar, and it's a very nice looking setup. It really is. Watching that with interest. On the weekly chart, we got a weak RSI 14, possible weak RSI 14 buy signal brewing, possible RSI 5 buy signal brewing. As I said, I'm looking for a potential rally on the US dollar here. Australian dollar monthly chart. I haven't done the weekly charts for Australian dollar and NZ yet. We've got a nice looking falling channel, and either it breaks up from the channel here, or it goes back to retest this low and possibly head lower. I'm leaning towards breakup. We haven't actually seen that breakup yet. On the dollar, on the daily chart. On the daily chart, it appears we have seen that breakup. Have we seen it? Wait a second. Is that the same? No, it isn't. That high here is up in the 0.801 area. That's not where this is. So I am short term. This might be the start of a breakup, but the main resistance here hasn't been broken up and won't be broken up unless we can get up over about 0.675. We will see whether it manages that. Daily chart, no current divergence. NZ on the monthly chart. And the monthly chart, again, I'm leaning towards seeing a breakup. I think this kind of looks like a consolidation triangle, which hasn't quite made it back to a retest this low. Normally, I would expect to see a retest this low here at 54.70. We haven't seen that yet. We will see whether we get it. But otherwise, does this look like a potential nice looking double bottom? Yes. And I'm leaning towards seeing a breakup next. On NZUSD, on the daily chart, we've broken up over this resistance here. This is actually a double bottom that's already broken up with a target in the between the about 62.85 and 62.25 areas. I'm liking that. No current negative divergence suggests we won't make it. All right, TYX, I had drawn in a potential inverted. I'll just show you those actually. So I'll be doing those on a post tonight. But bear with me a moment. All right, this is the possible IHS which is forming on TYX. This is the possible IHS which is forming, hang on one second, on TNX. I'm going to be talking in the post I'm planning to publish tonight. I'll be talking about the possibility that this might head up, and these targets are both in about the 9.5 area. That would be a massive increase, almost pretty much a doubling from here of American interest rates. Can it make it? Yes. Will it make it? Don't know. But it's not a bad setup, and to be honest, it's not a bad fit with current policies. I think we might see a major bond crisis this year, and that's the kind of move we might see in a major bond crisis. So we shall see. All right, looking at TNX on the weekly chart, no divergence worth the mention. On the daily chart, on the weekly chart again, nice looking rising channel here, and this is something I'm watching carefully because, of course, the resistance trend line up here is up in about 6.5 area. If we see a break over this level here, then it's kind of inviting that move up. It's not a bad rising channel. On the daily chart, this looks like a consolidation triangle at the moment, which would be setting up, obviously, a retest this high here of 49.97. I think we're going to be seeing that in the next 2 or 3 months. On the 60-minute chart, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fix. We've seen a rally on bonds, a decline on bond yields, and my lean is that's probably going to go a bit lower before it goes higher. But we don't necessarily have to go lower, but the signal is suggesting we will go lower, and normally I'd be expecting that to reach at least the possible near miss target in the 35 area on the RSI 14. All right, let's have a look at oil. Now, oil, we've got an IHS here. I've just rolled this into June, obviously. I've got an IHS here, which is broken up with a target in the 70 area. That's just below the monthly pivot at 68.89. Sorry, just above, rather. And I'm thinking that might have a shot. Waiting to see whether that will deliver. Could we see a fail? Yes. And actually, potentially, that fail could just be forming a larger IHS. But what I would say is the old low that I was looking for a retest for month was in the 63.57 area, where basically seeing if we can convert that into resistance at the moment. And I'm thinking that may become resistance later, and it's possible it's going to become resistance now. While equities are rallying, I think this has a shot at heading up into this target in the 70 area. After equities stop rallying, which I think this we're not probably going to be waiting that long before we start making lower lows on equities, then at that stage, I think oil is looking very, very vulnerable. I think both the energies are. NG, we had a nice looking bull set up here. We're in the process maybe of losing that. Maybe, maybe not. I am wondering if we might hold on to it on NG. I've got a possible wedge here. We could see a breakup, but it wouldn't surprise me if we didn't. One thing that we are likely to see a reduction in economic activity and a lot of chaos in the US as this not particularly intelligent Trump policy of tariffs goes further along the line. That is not going to be great for energy. So I'm not that surprised to see NG rejecting here. I wouldn't be surprised to see that go lower. I would also note that while this wedge might see us see NG go up, there's also a head and shoulders, which is suggesting it will go down. Week 60-minute buy signal fixed. I'm thinking we might see a bit of a rally here. Don't know how large it's going to be, but if we can get over this break of declining resistance in 3.93 area, then that could go places. We will see. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts and on WTIC. We're seeing a nice rally here. You can see how we are back testing broken support, and we're in the process of doing that now. We've also got the daily middle band, which I've got at 65.64. If that holds as resistance, then we can fail straight lower from here. And actually, just as a side note, maybe the best way to get peace in Ukraine is actually for the US dollar for oil to just head down to the 50 area for a while. I think we might be looking at a reduction in economic activity, which would mean that would do that anyway. If that happens, then I think the Russians are selling. I think from what I understand it, their cost basis for making oil is at about $40 a barrel, and they're selling it for about $10 under the world price. So if the world price goes down to $50, they're not making any money on the oil, and that would probably lead to the insolvency of the Russian government, and that would probably bring peace in Ukraine. So watching that with interest. But this is one reason why I'm particularly interested in what's happening on oil here. We've got big resistance up here. We've got this broken support. We've got the daily middle round at 65.64, waiting to see if it gets through those. In G, we've got a double top stroke head and shoulders, which is broken down here with a target in the 3.2 or 3 area. Now, we've made the first of those targets, which was at 3.2. The extended target is down in 3.05 area. We will see. And we've also got a test coming of or at least we will if we go lower, of the 200 DMA at 3.06. I'm leaning towards this potentially going a little lower, and if it goes much lower, then that could open the downside in a much more convincing manner. Bigger picture, we've still got a nice looking double bottom that's still broken up by the target. I've actually redrawn this slightly, and I've got a target really in about the 5.8 to 6.05 area. But we may be failing here. We've come back below the weekly middle band, of course. We haven't come below the monthly middle band, which I'm watching as a key level here, and I've got that at 2.82. Break down below that with any conviction and close a month below it, and we may well just be heading back into the lows. And as I said, generally speaking, reductions in economic activity are not good for energies. Okay, let's have a look at GC. GC has gone higher. I do have a potential rising wedge here. But it's not, hang on, sorry, it's moved my trend lines. I was changing a lot of these trend lines on Friday. But let's just have a quick look and see where that should be. Just moving that back. Right, we've got a possible rising wedge here, which is breaking down. This might lead to a bit of a consolidation. I'm going to be doing a post in the next couple of days talking about how the US dollar might lose its main reserve currency status and just become a reserve currency of a number of reserve currencies, and how I'm thinking that would be likely good for gold, other precious metals, other currencies, and which ones would be likely to benefit, crypto potentially, and so on. But gold would be one of those. At the moment, we're in nosebleed territory, but what nosebleed territory is great to a certain extent. We haven't got any obvious resistance trend lines left. We've gone through them all. This is the closest I've got to one, and it's a pretty steeply rising one. So I am thinking we might see a bit of a retracement here. I'm thinking after that we likely go higher. SI, we're seeing again a little rising wedge. It's broken down. I'm thinking consolidation and then likely higher. We are testing a broken support level here, and that's holding so far, but I don't think it's likely to hold for long. Looking at palladium, this is the first palladium hourly chart you've seen from me. But I've done these on palladium and platinum because I need to increase my my coverage of this, not least because I'm thinking both of these may be beneficiaries of the dollar's reducing dominance in the currency markets, and I'm wondering about silver, about platinum, about palladium as possible, having possible extra roles as a store of value. Just because they are heavy, they're expensive, and they may well just be, that's the sort of thing that can get turned into large bricks and left in bank vaults as a store of value. We will see. So anyway, in the short term, we've had a sell signal that's made target. We could have a head and shoulders forming here. I'm watching to see if we can get a break up over this trend line here, which I've got not quite there. Again, this has moved slightly. Bear with me a moment. Let's move that back. I was changing a lot of trend lines on these charts, but these two charts are entirely new. I wasn't doing these on the alley, but I've been reconsidering the way I look at futures just because stock charts has stopped supporting most futures charts. Yeah. All right. Okay, so this is the declining resistance. We almost made it. If we see a break up from that, that would be encouraging. I do have reasons to think this might go down further. I have mentioned these before, but it doesn't necessarily have to do that. All right, looking at the platinum chart, I am wondering about a. Let's move to. So I am wondering about a possible little retracement here, but again, I'm liking the upside, and the obvious trend line on the upside to be getting to is this declining resistance trend line, which is in the 1024 area. I'm waiting to see if it gets there. In the meantime, we've seen a little break of this rising support. I am wondering whether we might form a flag or see a bit of retracement. HG. HG, I'm really very bearish about. I was talking about this when we were up at these highs, and I was talking about Dr. Copper and how it's very sensitive to economic activity. It's hard to see how economic activity will be benefiting from tariffs and the other stuff we've been looking at this year. So I think I'm leaning towards the downside. We have seen a big downside move already. I think we are seeing a counter trend retracement here. Don't know how much longer it's going to be lasting, and it may be topping out now. I would say this is a very nice looking little double top, for instance. Okay, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts on metals. Okay, gold. Gold, we've still got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed here, but it's mainly remarkable that it hasn't failed yet. I wouldn't be surprised to see it fail. On the weekly chart, little bit of negative divergence, but not really something I'm putting much faith in. And you can see in terms of the bigger picture charts. Now, when we do make a high here, that may give me something to work on the bigger picture charts. But that's a maybe. And I won't know really until we make it. It's hard to project where that might be with putting the trend line back into sort of this area here. So we'll see. And equally, it might well be that trend line would be a macro trend line that we might see being obvious on the log chart, for instance. So, but for the moment, we've gone through all the trend lines. We've gone considerably higher. I wouldn't be surprised to see it go higher still. Looking at silver, I've got a possible trend line here at 38, which I'm watching if we can get higher. On the weekly chart, no current divergence, got a weekly sell signal which just made target here. I've got a very nice looking rising channel here. If we've found support here, then the next obvious target would be up here in about 37.5 to 38 area. That's a match with this. I've got this secondary trend line here, and that isn't a bad trend line, but the main one I'm looking at is up in 38, so I'd like to see that move. next. On the daily chart, no current divergence. You can see the overall channel and what looks an awful lot like a lovely bull flag. So I'm expecting to see a retest of the 34.86 in the not distant future. And then after that, I'll be wondering about a move up into this trendline resistance. We shall see. All right, looking at palladium. Now, palladium on the monthly chart, not a lot to say apart from we had a buy signal, and that's made target already, and then come off from that. On the weekly chart, no current divergence. Obviously, we haven't come down to historic lows here, but we've come down an awful lot from this high here at 34.40. I am wondering, I've been mentioning that this double bottom setup would be improved by a retest of 808. I'm still wondering if we might get that. Looking at the daily chart, wondering the same, no current divergence. All right, looking at platinum. Monthly chart, this looks like a triangle forming, and it looks like that on the weekly chart too. This has been a long consolidation. I had mentioned that we were basically in a 2 or 3 year triangle. Where would that lead to? I think normally these would be continuation. So that would be down. Not sure that's going to be the case here. That is, in fact, only a lean in any case. Would we have a really nice looking double bottom if it came down to 558? Yes. Do I think that moves particularly likely? I'm skeptical. But if we start seeing, if we got down below 816 and held it, then I'd be wondering. Then I would be looking at that 558 target as a possibility. We do need to remember that these are good potential stores of value, but they are also industrial metals, and industrial metals are sensitive to economic activity. On the daily chart, no current divergence. We've got a sell signal here, but it's reached the possible near-miss target already. This is the long triangle consolidation, and at the moment, hard to say where it should be going really within that. Ideally, it would go down to this. If this was a nice classical triangle, and there's no particular sign that that is the case here, the next obvious target would be down here in about the 866 area. Looking at copper. Copper, I mentioned that we were making new highs by quite a margin, and we had a nice potential level top here. And since then, I was talking about that when we were basically up at the highs, and before we were up at the highs, then I was saying that we might see a breakdown, and we might well see that. Now, in terms of what that would be in the short term, though, this double top here would be the one I was looking at. We made almost made this target here, but if we saw a sustained breakdown below 3.1, that would have a target a long way lower. That would be a target which would be really in about the 0.9 area. Not sure it's going to get anywhere near to that, but I do think the copper is going to be badly affected here. And we will see where that goes. Do I think it's going to head down below 1? No, I don't think there's any evidence of that. And actually, that's not a price we've seen since 2003, since which time the value of money is pretty much halved, as far as I can see, after some significant inflation during part of that. But am I thinking this could go considerably lower? Yes. Am I wondering if we might go to this trend line here in the 2.2 area? Definitely. So I would quite like to see that, although I'm not sure that really makes an overall pattern at all. On the daily chart, we've seen obviously a sharp move down. We've seen a sharp retracement. Pretty soon, I'd be expecting this to turn down again. We'll see. All right, looking at GDX. GDX, I've added the weekly charts here so that we can see where we are relative. I mean, we were so low for such a long time, it didn't seem much point putting these bigger picture charts in, but this is the bigger picture chart on the weekly, and this is the big high that we would be on the way back to. Now, we do have a possible trend line we've got here, and if the this could hold even while gold goes higher, in the event that we start seeing the market head down hard again soon, because equities would get dragged down with other equities. We'll see. But I've got two trend lines here. We've just reached one of them, and I've got another one up here, basically at the retest of this high here at 58.93. Looking at the daily chart, weak RSI 14 sell signal is fixed, and it's pretty close to failing. That might fail. Nothing really on the hourly chart. GDXJ on the weekly chart. Here is a very, very different picture. We've only actually made it back to the 38.2% retracement of this high in 2011 on GDXJ. But we've got this nice looking, what looks like a bear flag, actually. So I've got a couple of trend lines here. One of those is in about the 72 area, and the other one is in the 80 area. And those are the two obvious targets, which I'm looking at. So we will see. All right. Not much to say on the daily chart there, where the daily sell signal has already fell on GDXJ, and on the hourly chart where there's not a lot to say either. Okay, let's have a look at the commodities. Okay, KC. We've got an IHS here, which is broken up with a target in about the 398 area. I'm liking that target. I would say we've got a couple of areas to watch before we get there. We've got the monthly pivot at 383.25, and we've got declining resistance, which I've got in about the 389.5 area. Those two levels would need to be taken over. Overall, does this look like a bullish leaning pattern where we could see a break up and then a move back to the high? Yes, that's exactly what it looks like. So I'd be looking after that for a retest of 416 and a possible double top when we get there. Looking at sugar. Sugar, we've got nice move down here. I'm keeping an open mind on sugar. I am aware that there's a big chart risk of a potential serious breakdown, and I've done more charts on that this weekend, so I'll talk to you about those. In terms of this head and shoulders here, which I marked in, which did break down, it's already made really the target for that, which would be this move here. We've got a potential larger double top here, but actually the bearish pattern here is too large to fit on this chart. I'll show you that on the weekly. CC, potential double bottom here. Not been making a lot of progress off the low. Kind of looks like a bear flag forming at the moment. Keeping an open mind on that too. On wheat, this looks like a bear flag at the moment. We will see. Nice looking falling wedge, which is broken up, but I am wondering about a retest of this low. On corn, we've got a double bottom, which is broken up with a target in about the 517, well, 516 and a half area, I think. This looks like a little bull flag forming. Corn is looking good on the upside. On soy, we've got a falling wedge here, which is broken up, which I think is probably the best reading for it. What I would say on soy, though, and this looks like a little bull flag forming, what I would say on soy, though, is that an awful lot of soy gets sold, they're made by America. I think something like half of it gets sold to China. 245% tariff, just saying they're not going to be selling a lot of soy to China at that price. And so I think they've already been approaching the Brazilians, and the Europeans are going to be replacing most of what the Americans were selling them. So it's very hard to see anything particularly positive happening in terms of soy prices. Cotton, keeping an open mind here, but I've got more to say about this on the daily chart. Not really got a lean on here. Lumber, potential double bottom here, but there are good reasons to go down as well. Live cattle, we've got a double bottom that has broken up, an IHS which is broken up here with a target in the 207 area, and I'm liking that target, and then probably a follow-on retest of this high here in about the 2007.75 area. On terms of lean hogs, we've got over the monthly pivot, we're opening over the weekly pivot. We're getting up towards this declining resistance, this possible resistance level up here in about the 99 area, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this break over that and go significantly higher. We shall see. But again, that won't be on the basis that they're going to be selling an awful lot of hogs to China, and they do sell a lot of hogs to China. So we shall see. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture on those. Okay, looking at coffee. Now, coffee is at very, very high levels historically. You can see that on this weekly chart here, which goes down. It certainly goes down to 2019, but trust me, that's a big level. I am wondering about a retest of this high here at 441, and then I'm wondering whether that might be the second high of a double top, and that would set up some really nice negative divergence on the weekly RSI 14. On the daily chart, no current divergence, but this looks like a bull flag forming, and not far away from breaking up from that, so we shall see. All right, sugar. Sugar, I was doing quite a lot of work on this because I wanted to get some more insight in terms of which way I think this is going to jump in terms of this large head and shoulder pattern. Now, looking on the weekly chart, you can see the head and shoulders. You can see it's already broken down. You see it's got a target at 0.09, which is half the current level, basically. That is a big move, and you wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of that. No current divergence, really worth the mention. We do have a bit of positive divergence on the daily chart, though. We've got an RSI 14 bicycle fix. I don't think there was divergence here, but I measured and there is. So we have got a daily RSI 5 bicycle fixed. Sorry. It's so there are some reasons to think this might go up. My main concern with this chart is just the very high-looking risk that it might go down. So this is not an instrument where I'd be particularly keen to be long at the moment. So it doesn't mean it can't go up, but it just looks high risk. CC, historically, again, this is nosebleed. levels here. I am wondering if this could be a double top, but obviously the closer double top target gets to 0, the less likely it is to actually be a double top. In terms of this, could this be a flag? Maybe too large, really relative to this last move. But maybe not a bad looking pattern here, and the next obvious target would be a test of the declining resistance in the 9250 area. If it can get over that, then I'd be wondering about a potential little top breaking up and maybe getting back up into a retest that high. But this high has already been retested by that one. There's no particular need for another retest, and it wouldn't really change the overall pattern chart. On wheat, not overbought or oversold by historical standards. We're seeing a bit of a rally here, no current divergence. On corn, wondering about a move up into this declining resistance, rising resistance, currently at about the 520 area. On soybeans, on the weekly chart, this looks like a bear flag forming. Next obvious target would be flag support, which is currently down here at about the 960 area, and then probably a retest this low here at 936. That seems a very obvious thing to be happening on soy here at the moment. Could we test the declining resistance first? Yes, and maybe that's why it's heading up, because that is the next obvious target. I've got that currently in the 1100 area. But obviously, time and price. Obviously, if this continues for a while, it could test that significantly lower. Looking at the daily chart, no current divergence, but obviously it's a decent looking flag, and I'm wondering about it. On cotton, keeping an open mind on cotton, I don't really have a lean, and there's no obvious pattern set up. On lumber, we've got a double top here, which is broken down, and that's got a target in the 510 to 520 area. We've got a possible RSI 5 buy signal brewing on the daily, possible weak RSI 14 buy signal brewing, and I am wondering if we might have a little double bottom here, which is about to break up. But bigger picture, unless we start seeing some signals fixing, the obvious move is down, and with likely reduction in economic activity, lumber is very, very sensitive to economic activity. So I'd be leaning towards that going down as well. All right, great. In that case, that's a wrap. I will catch you guys again on Wednesday, and we will see how it's going. All right, should be publishing a post tonight. Look out for that. All right, cheers.